This is the Troutbitten podcast.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Yeah, Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
It's about trout.
Wild trout. This is Troutbitten.
This is the Troutbitten podcast, and welcome to the finale of Season 3. This is episode 15, and we're here to talk about being a versatile angler. I'm Dominic Swantowski, the owner of Troutbitten and the author of Troutbitten.com. And I'd like to sincerely thank everyone out there for your support of the Troutbitten project. And I mean all of it. Since 2014, the website, the videos, the shop, and this podcast, I've met a lot of wonderful people through this endeavor, and I've thoroughly enjoyed creating these media channels. What started as a way to document my fishing experience to leave for my 2 young sons has grown into a career and a company and a brand that I'm proud of. Thanks also to the sponsors who have supported this podcast from the beginning. And most importantly, thanks to my guests, Josh, Trevor, Matt, Austin, and Bill. These are my most trusted fishing friends, and it's their ideas, their voices, and their companionship that makes this podcast special. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. It's a little sentimental, right?
Right?
Shit.
Right? We're here at the end of Season 3.
Last podcast, man.
I can't believe it's finale.
I was just getting started after the grievance episode. I was kind of mad I had to listen to you guys I found myself listening to the night fishing episode on the way home, wanting to I was talking to myself. I was like, dang it. What do you guys do to stay up? What's your trick for that?
Stay up
2
on
nights of good sleep before
Like
it.
gummy worms? Gummy worms, like Sour Patch Kids?
Peach rings?
Pretty good.
Peach rings?
No. Sugar will put you right to sleep.
You never hit that topic. I was like, well, I wanted, at first, you guys just hit the high level stuff. It's like, well, how do you stay up? So,
No, that's a good
great
point. I do coffee. Seriously. Yeah. I drink coffee on my way to the river, and I never, ever drink coffee at night usually.
I don't ever drink coffee the morning that I night fish, and I only drink it in the evening. So I flip my day. I just skip it in the morning and then drink it in the evening. Because otherwise it burns me out. It just doesn't have the same effect.
Right on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point, Matt. I mean, that is something we didn't cover, right? And what it is?
Yeah.
You're asking your body to do something very different. Mm-hmm. Now, usually the fear, especially when you first start, the unusualness of it all kind of heightens your senses, and you're on.
You're not tired until you get in the car for the ride back.
Good point.
That's when it sets in.
after listening to the episode, I envisioned myself trying to acquire night vision goggles.
Everybody says that. I've had a lot of people say that, right? There's I don't know how much it would help, to be honest. And really, that glow in the dark line,
That's money.
that does everything. It gives you almost everything you need. That combined with that bank flash we talked about, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, then, the versatile angler. Versatility is a Troutbitten mantra. It's the way we fish. In fact, it's why I fish a fly rod. Because whatever way the trout wish to feed, I can show them flies that represent that food form. And while some anglers hit the river with one thing in mind, with one fly box and with one set of tools, it's the ability to adapt, to adjust, and modify our approach that makes a lifetime on the water so interesting. Of course, we focus on our favorite tactics, and we may spend the next half of a year just perfecting our dry fly game in tight cover. But once these skills are learned, then knowing that we can throw anything at any time, having a full set of skills at the ready, is a rewarding and enjoyable approach to fly fishing for trout. Pursuing this kind of versatility also keeps us in the game for a lifetime. We are forever working on the next idea, refining new casts and another approach. Eventually, we develop such a facility with these skills that we begin to combine them, breaking free from the common and standard approach and landing on new ways to get a dead drift or move a streamer. Creation becomes the goal. Design becomes our drive. And experimentation leads to more answers that lead to more questions. All of it is our reward for being a versatile angler. But of course, nothing comes easy either. The beginning angler should probably refrain from branching out too much at first, because too much versatility can become confusing and maybe lead to frustration. There are stages, there are tools, there are systems for being versatile on the water, and there's a time for all of it. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Here for our Season 3 finale is a full house. Austin Dando, Trevor Smith, Josh Darling, Bill Dell, and Matt Grobe. So guys, how's the fishing?
All right.
I just got done fishing for 6 days, so now I know how Bill Dell feels every week of the year.
That's a good way to put it. Right?
You feel tired, right? It's a lot of work.
I had to row a lot too, so that's even harder.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
6 days in a row.
Yep, it was vacation. My brothers came out. We've been doing an annual trip to chase salmon flies.
That is nice.
And yeah, they just my older brother Bill left yesterday, but it was just awesome, dude. We had we're getting out the new boat, so we got in my new RO DeVille and put it to use for 6 days, and the weather was great. The flows were big, so you had to wade fish, or I'm sorry, you had to fish out of a boat.
Yeah.
And like we timed post runoff just about perfect, so those fish are just eating like crazy, right?
Nice.
Some big foam bugs, and caught some fish on the salmon fly, and got to spend much needed time with them. And yeah, you know how that is, spending time with the
That's
family,
awesome.
fishing. You can't beat it.
For sure. 6 days. Hard work, you said. Were you grinding it, Matt?
Oh my gosh, was I grinding it?
It was a grind.
Did it pay off, though?
Did your hard work pay off?
It paid
your
off.
hard work pay
It
off?
paid
Was
off.
it worth
Big
it?
payoff.
It was
There you
worth
go.
it. And
There you go.
Yeah. No, it was physically, I wasn't in rowing shape.
That'll get you in rowing shape, right?
Yeah, it got me in
Yep.
rowing shape. I got some sore traps.
There you go.
Did you have like the grove out, like the family grove out of trout?
Oh yeah. You saw some of them. I have a bunch of
All right.
18 to 22 inch fish that I can
Look at this
I can
one.
put
Look
up.
at this one.
Yeah, look at that one. Look at this one.
Somewhere in that 18 to 22 range. Didn't measure them, but most of them were whiskeys.
And it was funny because one of my 19s looks bigger than my poor brother's 22, and only I
Yeah.
know his was way bigger than my 18-inch.
The hold matters.
The championship hold,
I hate to say it, but the hold matters. Yeah.
Hold matters.
tucking the elbow.
One other thing I learned, which is super weird. So everybody knows about the whole Yellowstone flood that's happened, and so that was almost 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the river's still chocolate mud, and we haven't had any rain
Wow.
since then, and runoff is subsiding. And I was like, man, what's going on? And I talked to one of my good buddies, and he said there was so much disruption to the banks and the trees that there's now just constant erosion. And the stream, no one knows when it's going to clear out. It's completely just continuing to erode. And I thought that was interesting. I never thought about that during a flood.
And it's going to be a totally different river with the channels and everything else. Are probably going to, or you're going to have houses for structure to fish off
right.
of now.
Everyone's wondering where that house went.
Yeah, that's no
It's under a
joke.
bridge somewhere.
Yeah, that's no joke, man. You brought up the night fishing episode, though, right?
Yeah.
The grievances episode went over well. I expected to get.
Did you get any hate mail? No hate mail?
I honestly didn't. I didn't get any hate mail.
Amazing.
Did people comment on the comedy aspect of it? Was it pretty funny?
I don't know if it's comedy, but right? I mean,
It was pretty funny.
right?
We
I think
liked it.
yeah. I think people
Next
understood.
grievance.
People actually commented on that to me that they liked that.
Nice.
No, I thought it was fun, and I think everybody seemed to anyway take it for the way we meant it, right? Having some fun with
You
it,
got to have a little fun.
trying to have some fun with it, but also call out some things that are kind of absurd, right?
I feel like after I was done, like the week after, I thought of like 10 new ones that I should have written down for like
Part two.
the sequel.
Part 2 coming up. That's right.
Got to save them.
It might have to be a yearly grievance episode. Yep, 2022 grievance out of the way.
In the
2023.
spirit of Festivus, it's an annual event.
There you go.
Maybe we should do it the first day of the PA opener and Fishmas or something like that.
See,
I like
we got
that.
all these ideas.
Yeah.
All right, so hey, it's been a couple weeks since we fielded a listener question because we were busy. We were busy grieving. We were busy with grievances. That didn't sound right. We were busy with grievances and talking about night fishing. But here, let's get back to a listener question. We have a lot of them, really. I think in an upcoming season, we'll have to just answer a whole bunch of them all at once. Maybe do a whole episode with listener
kinda
questions.
cool.
I know,
Yeah.
right? It kind of be like freewheeling, like we did in season 1, except
I like it.
with the listener questions leading us through. Hey, anyway, Josh, will you read this question, please?
Yeah, so this comes in from Alaska through email, and this is from Bob Randolph. Hey, Troutbitten crew. Thanks for the podcasts. I spend a lot of time traveling up here, and I think I've listened to every episode 3 times by now. Love what you guys are doing. I grew up in eastern Pennsylvania, so hearing you guys talk about the area brings back some great memories. My question might be a common one, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. What tippet should I use? What are the factors that you all consider when choosing diameters and strengths, fluorocarbon or nylon? It's a good question. Who's got something helpful?
Yeah.
I let Dom do all the testing and then I wait.
That's right.
That's not true. Matt, you're the one who told me about Seagar and Vizex.
I know. And that's what I still use.
Yep. I was on Seagar Finesse, then they stopped making it, and I was all disappointed. Matt's like, that's all right. Moved to
That was good
Invizex.
stuff.
Yep.
That broke my
You
heart.
guys all use Invis?
Oh, yeah.
I use it.
Yeah.
I use it.
Every day. I consider it 4.5x.
Yep.
It is. That's right. You mic it out. That's what it is. It's
Right.
I use a Braze-X, and then I use the Orvis Tippet.
Mm-hmm. Strength per diameter is the important thing.
Sure.
I use it every day. It's good stuff.
Now, do you roll it onto a smaller spool? Or
I
do. You
do.
use...
I'm not carrying
Yeah.
that big spool around. I think we all do
Right.
that.
You don't carry 100 yards on a Tippet ring.
No, right. Yeah, I think what Bob's asking, maybe most, is like not necessarily brand, but like why do we choose fluoro over nylon and how do we decide diameters? Anybody want to lead that?
The biggest factor for me for diameter is the rod size that I'm fishing. Because if I fish my 5 weight, which is very fast and very stiff, if I tend to fish anything less than 4x, the velocity that I set the hook, I often break fish off.
Okay.
That's one of the leading factors for me. So if I'm fishing a 5 weight that's really fast, I'm probably not going to go below 4x.
I understand. Anybody else have a different way of deciding diameter?
Yeah, for me, a little bit will depend upon what I want to do that day. So if I want to switch back and forth between nymphing and streamers, I might fish 3X just to give myself a little bit more versatility there. Or 2 or 4, depends on the size of streamer I may fish. But it also matters to me, the depth and speed of the water matters a little bit because I don't, if I'm going to use lighter flies, I don't want to fight to get my flies down quickly. And so I'll drop tippet size if I need to get the type of sink rate that I want.
Because that makes a big difference. 6X allows for so much quicker of a sink rate.
Slices
than
right
3X.
through, yeah.
Oh my. And even it's a big difference between 5X and 6X.
Yeah,
For
it
me,
is.
I kind of match the fly size to the tippet size. I don't like to be nymphing big size 10 stone flies, for example, on, well, certainly not 6X. I don't even like it on 5X. And I will go to that 4 or 4.5. But then again, I'm not going to fish a size 20 zebra midge on 4X.
Right.
Rarely, anyway. And I'll usually go, that's one of the times when I will go down to 6X. I like to think about how much can that fly flex at the tippet? How much flexibility, how much room to kind of wiggle and maneuver does it have? With 6X, it moves a lot more than if it was kind of just hanging out there stiff on a cable,
Yeah.
like with 3X or 4X. For me, I'd say that's my primary thought. That's the first thing I'm thinking about.
Sure.
For me, out here, especially right now, what dictates my diameter is a little bit of seasonality. So right now I have very high rivers and clarity is an issue. And so I feel like these fish don't have much time to inspect much of anything. And so I'll get away with the thickest diameter. So I might throw size 20 on a 4X, but it's only for the next like 4 weeks. And I'm not worried about what that fly, like they might have a split second to react to that because the current's just ripping, right? And the clarity's not there. So seasonality for me dictates the diameter I choose.
That's cool.
And I'll basically scale down as the season progresses. But right now I'm using thick, right? Why not? Like I'm not having any issues with catching. It's like I'll take the 3 and 4X while I can.
When I read Bob's question, I'm always thinking, what's the thickest tippet diameter that I can get away with? What's the strongest tippet that I can get away with?
Yep.
And I do think that lots of people are thinking the opposite these days. Like, oh, what's the skinniest tippet I can get away with here?
That's a good point.
I'd rather be stronger,
Sure.
fight the fish harder, be ready for that fish of a lifetime. If you're fishing the skinniest tippet you can, 7, 8X sometimes, you're probably not going to land the fish of a lifetime.
Sure.
And I don't really care about those 10-inch fish. I want to land that 30-inch mythical beast that I'll probably never hook, but maybe. And I'll be ready.
One other thing too, I'm going to add onto my point is I'm doing a lot of boat fishing right now, and there's a ton of debris in the water, and so if I'm fishing 4 or 5, like I'm breaking off those flies a lot more frequent than if I'm on 3X right now, because then I can dislodge some of that stuff on the bottom.
Yeah.
It just makes it easier, right, to remove some snags for me this time of year.
It's one of the reasons we do that at night. We rope up, because we'll get in the trees and right on the banks, and it's in the dark, and we're just, boom, just pull it right out. Usually comes out.
I've got a kind of an interesting trick for line diameters. And are you guys familiar with the rule of 11?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So the principle is, if you want to figure out, let's say you're on the creek or just thinking things over in your head, and you want to think about how many thousandths is my tippet section. What you do is you take 11 and you subtract whatever the tippet size is. So let's say you have 5X. Take 11 minus 5, you're left with 6.
Yep.
5X is 6 thousandths of an inch.
Yeah, 0.06. 0.006, sorry.
That was some fast math, man. Jeez.
But it's just something neat Greg Hoover taught me. And
it is.
I never
cool.
knew that, but it does check out.
Yeah, because that stuff's confusing at first, especially because it's 11 instead of 10. And I remember being very confused at first, like, wait a second. Hell, I was confused with, wait a second, 2X is thicker than 3X? It's one of those things. It's like, wait, it's reversed. One more thing we should probably address. Does everybody use fluorocarbon underneath?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I use nylon on top. Does everybody else do that, or do you stay with fluoro?
I use nylon.
I use nylon on top as well.
Depends.
80% of the time. If I'm
Yeah, sure. There are definitely times when I'm not going to switch and I'm going to make a change fast.
if I'm using the mono rig, I won't put nylon on because I'm not going to lay the tippet on the water. If I'm going to fish fly line and make longer casts, then I'm going to put nylon on.
Yep.
Agreed.
Like I build my Harvey leaders with nylon. I like the flexibility. Again, I can get more S-curves and slack in nylon. It's just a softer material. It also doesn't sink like fluoro will. But I do think it's overblown. And heck, if you really care about your fluoro tippet, if you want to use it, you could put a little bit of grease on it if you wanted. You could keep it floating. But I use fluorocarbon underneath for the abrasion resistance. I understand it sinks a little quicker. Yes. And it is, I believe them when they say that the refractive index is less and that fish don't see it as much. But I don't think trout are very tippet shy. Anyway, I use it for the abrasion resistance underneath.
Yeah, I would agree with
Good
that.
stuff.
I remember that was the big, like when fluorocarbon first came out, I was in high school, like the big thing was like, oh, this is invisible. The fish can't see it.
Right.
Well, then why are you making it in different sizes?
Well, yeah. That's one way.
Sink rate.
That's a funny point.
That's right. I'd go back to the flexibility of it, but no.
Yeah.
That's a pretty thorough answer to Bob's question, right? Anything else?
Yeah, I think to your point, Tom, we covered it pretty well. The only thing I'll add too is, sometimes, if you're on a budget, and those big spools we order from Invis and Seagar or whatever, obviously that's a lot cheaper than constantly going to the fly shop and buying 30-meter spools of brand name stuff. I mean, that stuff adds up. So Bob, if you're budget conscious, an economical way to approach that is to look at that Seagar or some of that. What would you even call that, Dom? That's kind of not like mainstream fly fishing tippet,
right?
But it's more than adequate. I mean, it's very good. It's adequate. A lot of us use it, and then you respool old tippet spools, and there you have it. No one can tell.
Yeah, I wrote a full article on that because you really can't just walk into Dick's Sporting Goods and buy any fluorocarbon off the shelf, because it really is about strength per diameter. And you can't really believe what's printed on the label, not from any of these fly fishing companies and not from any of the, let's say, spin fishing companies. You have to mic it out, and you need to do some break strength tests yourself. And you're going to find a tippet that knots well for you. And all of these things matter. And some of the most of the spin fishing line, I would not use. But yeah, there's some special ones out there. And what we've mentioned here is Seagar and Vizex. I think a number of us use that in the 4-pound. And I treat it again as my 4.5X, and it's excellent stuff. I actually prefer it over almost all of the other fly fishing brands. For over a decade, Smith Creek has provided innovative, high-quality angling solutions designed to put your gear in easy reach, free up your hands, and keep our waters clean. Smith Creek's award-winning rod clip attaches to your vest and grips a variety of rod sizes, freeing up your hands to tie a fly, change a hook, or release your catch. All Smith Creek products are built guide tough, using high-quality materials like anodized, marine-grade aluminum, and UV-resistant nylon. For a limited time, Troutbitten customers can save 10% off select Smith Creek products like rod clips, rod racks, and net holsters. Just visit the Smith Creek official store on Amazon.com and apply the discount code 10SmithCreek at checkout. That's the number 10 followed by Smith Creek. All right, so here we go. The versatile angler. We talk about this a lot, right? Through these podcasts over a couple seasons, we've talked about being versatile. And I've published full articles about it. Because for all of us, I think I speak for all of us, having a handle on all of these tactics, all of the flies, all of the presentations is the way we approach this game. Am I right about that? Do we all value versatility?
Oh, yeah. This is my favorite.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like to catch fish.
That's right. Like to catch 'em.
Different ways,
Yes, because they like to eat different ways, right?
for sure.
So let's start with this. Is versatility the opposite of specialization? You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know.
I get your point, kind
I
of.
think it depends. It depends on how you
Yeah, go ahead.
define specialization, because I think
Mhm.
the monorig is a specialized system, but one that allows the most versatility. So I think it just depends on how you define it.
Neat.
We're specialized in versatility.
Yeah, it's specialized in versatility.
That's good.
What's a Swiss Army knife, right? It's a specialized type of knife.
Mhm.
It's the best at doing everything.
Wow.
Except for it's not the best at doing almost anything.
He's so smart.
All right. Not
You
as
know.
helpful. Yeah.
Trevor, actually, I was kind of thinking something similar. If
Yeah.
we're out fishing and we have a mono rig on, to us, it's a very versatile tool, and we know how to use it really well.
Yeah.
And if we go
Totally.
upstream and we hand our versatile tool to someone who's never used it, they're
Mm.
probably going to think it's incredibly specialized.
Yeah.
And they may have a
Yes.
different rod setup, they may have a different leader setup that to them, they can efficiently catch fish in lots of different ways. So
Mm.
it doesn't really matter. And, we're not saying if you don't fish our way, you're not versatile.
Surely not.
It's learning how to use your own tools and still be efficient, catch fish, and be able to do it multiple ways.
I think that's a really good point. When I first started fly fishing, I nymph fished and tight lined, and I did all that without the mono rig,
Sure.
and I still caught a good number of fish.
I'm sure you
but
did. yeah.
then when you do bring in the mono rig, it does do some of those things better.
Sure.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to catch fish.
Oh, yeah.
And the way you catch more fish is by providing a drag-free drift most of the time, right? And so the mono rig allows you to do a drag-free drift better than a lot of different systems. So I think we've all embraced that, but there are certain, you can't just stop at that. I think there's other situations that if you want to catch fish on any given day, you need to be good at throwing fly line.
Oh, for sure.
On certain
Sure.
days. You need to understand maybe some sink tip leader, if I'm fishing a lake, just stuff like that. I think be open-minded, and if your goal is to catch as many fish as you can, that should keep you progressing towards learning new things, and that'll allow you to be versatile. When I think of specialty, I personally think of like just nymphing. That's my
Or just fishing streamers. Yeah.
right. That's kind of where like, oh, I'm a special. Like some guys love dry fly fishing, and that's their specialty.
Mhm.
And some guys love nymph fishing, and that's their specialty. That's what comes to mind for me when I think of specialty.
Mhm. Specialization, too. Austin, you brought this point up not too long ago. I forget in which podcast. You said if you're so specialized in your tools, meaning like a fly rod and the leader, if you're so specialized in those tools, you're limiting yourself, and you might try to be versatile, but those tools really won't let you do it, no matter how
Yeah.
good your tactics might get. You know what I mean? Yeah, you said it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good point.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
And Matt, what you were saying there is like, learn it all. For me, that's what I realized. It is. It's the reason I fly fish. However the trout want to eat, I can show them that food form with a fly rod. I realized that right away. That is honestly why I moved away from fishing minnows on a spinning rod. And right away I realized there was a lot to learn. But I guess I also realized I couldn't learn it all at once. So I really did focus on dry flies because I think everybody kind of does. Well, that's not true. These days, a lot of people get into it. They're a streamer guy right away, or they're fishing nymphs right away, whatever. I got into it through dry flies and on small streams. And boy, I was in the trees a lot. That was okay. I eventually got through it. And yeah, then I started fishing streamers, and then I started fishing nymphs, and then I went to nymphs on an Indy and whatever. I learned it all. Now, I mean, I can use it all.
Yeah.
Reminds me of when I was playing saxophone. I just thought of this. I had a teacher, really good teacher, who told me like, oh, you need to learn these scales. You need to learn these fingering patterns. You need to learn all of this music theory. And then you're going to just forget about all of that, and you're just going to play. And that's kind of how I'm out there.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm out there now. It took years, really. Well, years to learn those skills on the saxophone, and then years to learn these skills on a fly rod.
That's a perfect analogy. Yeah. I love that.
That's how I feel when I'm out there. I'm not trying to force any square peg in a round hole. Whatever works for the moment. Yeah. And I can be versatile, because we'll talk about in a little bit, because of the way my system is ready to just switch to this, switch to that within a minute or two.
Right. And if you fish year round, sun up to sundown,
right,
you're gonna walk away at some point with your head down because you didn't. If you're not versatile, you're gonna get stumped.
Yeah.
Right. And that's part of what drives us. But if you're versatile, you start learning those different techniques and maybe the different ways to approach fish, and that all molds into this versatility piece that we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, right on.
Dom, how did you go about going through each of those styles of fishing? Did you kind of just devote yourself to one thing at a time for a couple weeks, couple months, a year? Like, how did you go about that?
Yeah, for sure. At first I wasn't thinking about it so much. I was learning to fish dry flies because that's what I wanted to do. I saw rising trout around me. And so for those first few years, I'd fish dries in the same streams that I always had fished, and it was working. And when it wouldn't work, I'd fish streamers. I thought I'd be a really good streamer guy because I was pretty good at minnows. And some of it converted, but then I realized how much more I had to learn.
Dom, did anything have to drive you, like, was it the season that you were fishing at that point? Were you fishing all year, or were you just fishing the traditional, prime 8 weeks?
No, right. I didn't winter fish back then, but I'd fish pretty late into the fall. I remember when people were hunting, like when my uncle was hunting, I'd still be fishing. And early in the season, for opening day or whatever, I was right back at it. And you know what? I was still throwing dry flies when I'd have the fly rod. For a while there, for the first couple of years, I was still back and forth. I would use the spinning rod when I thought it was the best tool, and then the fly rod. What really opened things up for me, though, and Josh, more to your point, is when I started nymphing. And then that's when I started reading Joe Humphrey's stuff, and I started understanding tight lining. Like, I got into nymphing through tight lining, not through indicator styles. That's when I said, all right, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to learn next. And I very much focused on that. And that was when I did start to try to learn one thing at a time. And I remember there'd be rising trout around me, but I'd still stay underneath. And I had the confidence to do that because I remember in a video, Joe Humphreys saying, if they're rising, you still stay underneath. The biggest trout are still underneath. And I did. And then, through the years, then I added the Indy. I learned to do that, did full mono rig stuff, really dedicated a lot of years to that. And then there was a full year where I fished streamers because I felt like that was the gap in my game. And then I did the night fishing thing for a long time too.
So the one thing I would say is with the streamers, when I really got into that and really fishing streamers out of a boat, I learned a lot of information about sink tips and intermediate line. Like, all that stuff really starts to matter.
Yeah.
When you're fishing out of a boat, when you're fishing bigger rivers. That was the phase that I went through, was like fishing out of a boat with streamers. And I don't know, I guess I've gone full circle, and I was really trying to dial in the different types of lines, the different weights, the sink rates, and all of that stuff. I wanted to dial all that in, and now I've kind of gone full circle and said, okay, well, some of that stuff really matters at times, but there's a lot of times it doesn't matter as much.
Sure. Right on.
Most times it depends on the river you're fishing more than anything else.
And it's nice now that you have that to fall back on and to build new ideas from. I think that's the coolest thing about learning something new in this game, is now you have a new set of a new set of ideas that you can sort of build your own style on and solve your own problems because you understand about those sinking lines, for example.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Bill, you kind of mentioned you mentioned right there, different styles of gear and different styles of, rigging. Do you think we need a lot of gear in order to be versatile, or can we do a lot of things with, minimal equipment?
I think you can catch fish if you took 40 flies and a standard fly line and went out and fished every day. I still think if you present it, like, you'd be limited, but if you were a good fisherman, I think you could still catch at least 3/4 of the amount of fish that someone else that would have, all the gear and all the ability to change everything most days.
Yeah.
But I think the difference, the difference between that and what I think I see in what we're talking about is just the versatility, right? Because I think all of us have the goal to develop our individual skill in each type of fishing to the point that we can take dry flies out, we could take dry dropper out, we could take nymphing out, we can take streamer fishing out and have some success in the water. But the real fun in developing yourself as a versatile angler is getting out on the water, walking into the water and standing there and looking around at your conditions and saying, okay, I have this tool in my hand that allows me to be versatile enough to match the conditions that I'm finding myself in. And then you go about fishing and then responding to what the fish are doing and meeting them on their own terms, rather than saying, I'm choosing out of my limited options this one style of fishing, and then I'm going to try to make the fish bend to me,
Yeah.
Nice.
So much of the fun, I think, for us is this chess match, or that, and the more skilled you are at each of those individual tools, it just gets more and more fun.
What do you think is the most versatile tool? Meaning, what's the most important thing for a versatile angler? Is it the rod? It's not the reel. Is it the line or the leader?
Whew. It's the rod and the line.
I think it's knowledge.
Knowledge.
Yeah.
There you go.
I do. I think you start off with that
Yeah.
first.
Nice.
I think you
Fair.
need to
Yeah.
understand stuff and conditions. What Trevor was just saying,
and how to
where
adapt.
you're at.
Yeah.
Right.
How
where are
you
you
should
at? What
adapt.
time of year?
Yeah.
What's your goal for the day?
That's nice.
Is the goal to catch fish? Because if the goal is to catch fish, then it's like, okay, what tools do I need to catch those fish? Which is, then it goes down into your question that you just posed, Dom. Like,
As far as gear, though.
yeah. What am I sitting on the bank with? Like, if I'm going to a new stream and it's in the middle of May in central Pennsylvania and I've never fished it, what's the most versatile setup that the six of us utilize? And I think if I was going, I'd have the mono rig with the Harvey leader that I could swap in pretty
Both.
quickly. Those two things would be 1 and 2, hands
same
down,
here.
no questions asked.
Yeah.
Right on. So leader.
Yeah.
I think it's the leader. Yeah.
Yeah, I
But-
totally agree with that.
I think the leader for me, answering my own question, I think it's the leader. And then, boy, I want that fly rod to also be able to handle a lot of different things. They're both really important. Josh, you got something?
Well, I was just going to say like a middle of the line fly rod, like
Yeah.
middle of the line in length. So maybe 9 feet. I mean, if you're going to choose something that can do absolutely everything, maybe 10 feet, you know?
10 for me.
So what do you guys think is the most versatile fly rod weight?
That's tough to say because it depends on where you are, what type of fish you're fishing for. But here, for me, I think most of us, it's 10-foot 4 weight for me.
Yeah.
Close to that in length, 9.5, 10 feet.
I'm fishing the same thing. But I did have, for years, it was just, like 2 years ago that I switched over from a 5 weight to a 4 weight.
Yeah.
And the 5 weight was excellent too. Like,
Same.
You can do a lot with a 5 weight also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still
I
fish
also
a
think
5.
there's not like a one standard for. I think there's a lot of variability within brands, or between brands, I should say.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think the more skilled, the 4 weight requires some more skill
Go ahead.
personally than a 5 weight. I think a 5 weight allows you to be a little more sloppy with fighting fish
Hey, now.
and getting them in. I do.
Where are we going with this?
I think when you get a
Just picking on
4
you.
weight, it takes a little more skill to land a bigger fish and to keep them out.
Well, you're in the fish landing phase.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if you put a beginner on a 4 weight, I see them lose a lot more fish. They just have more trouble fighting the fish, in my opinion, than a 5 weight that has a little more backbone.
Yep.
I don't know, that's just me. That's just an observation.
that's
Maybe I've
fair.
seen slooping too many fish. lately.
he makes it into every podcast. He's so popular.
If I can choose, I'm going to take a 4. But if I'm given the option of a 3 or a 5, I'm going to take a 5.
Ooh, that's a good point
Nice.
for me. I agree with that.
Good call.
Yep. More versatility. Boy, I'm
Yeah,
not fishing a 2-weight and calling it versatile. You know what I mean? That's not a
Yeah,
versatile
sure.
rod. And I'm
It's a specialized rod. Yeah.
Talent doesn't
That's
matter.
for doing one thing.
That
Yeah.
is. It's pretty much for doing one or two things, very specialized, and that is not a versatile tool. Most of the 3-weights are not versatile tools. There are some stiffer 3-weights, but not many of them. And I'm not even talking about for fighting fish. I'm talking about for how you can present the fly, how many different types of flies you can present, and yeah, even just how many different ways you can nymph. You know, the other day, a guy asked me, how many different ways do you nymph out here? Because we did about 4 or 5 of them, you know. I'm not going to run through them. And I started thinking about it, and I added it up, and I went 7. I said there's 7 different ways that I nymph. And yeah, I mean, that's being versatile. We're saying, oh, I nymph and I streamer fish and I dry fly fish, so I'm versatile. But yeah, even within nymphing, there's like 7 different ways that I do it. I'm sure there are more than that, but I like being versatile, right? That's what we're talking about. A lot of different ways to present nymphs. And anyway, you're not going to do all 7 of those ways. You're really not on a 2-weight. But you can absolutely do all of those 7 ways on a 4-weight and a 5.
Yeah.
So I guess the next thing is we have to talk about pack versus vest and hash it out here.
Bill's
in
the
the
expert
term.
because he's owned everything on the market.
I do. I think
New
I have
pack
probably,
out.
I think I have 20 packs and vest combined, probably just sitting in my garage right now.
Bill, you
I have
really
a
should
problem.
start like a gear review page.
I know. Yeah, seriously, we're not joking. A new
I would
pack
watch
comes
that.
out, and Bill's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Bill gave us a gear review today.
Mhm.
I gave you a gear review today. It was not a good one.
See, I think the carrying system has to be the least important because
Yeah.
it's what's in the
Right.
system.
And it's your ability to use it or to switch
Yeah.
quickly. I don't care if it's a vest or a pack or
I could have like a junior park ranger vest and still fish the same way
That's why
as a
Matt's here.
fish pond chest pack. Right?
Walmart.
If the stuff in it's the same, I'm
Yes.
as versatile as I was with an expensive
if
chest
you
pack.
know
over-
where your gear is and you have thought out your system and you know that you can get to your next leader and put it on in a minute, great. And it doesn't matter if it's a hip pack or a sling pack. And we all have our opinions on that. And there's certain ones of those that I just hate, but that's me. Whatever. I'm with Matt on that. That's what matters is your ability to use it and to have thought it through. That's it.
Now,
That's being versatile.
right.
Is being
But-
efficient. When we
but I
talked about
think-
that in a previous podcast.
I do think the ability to be comfortable
Mm-hmm.
while you're fishing is a huge benefit. Like
Sure.
right now, I'm starting to switch back over to
one of
the
my
chest-
15 vests.
one of my go get a new one. Now, actually, in the summertime when it gets really hot, I prefer the hip packs over the vest because
You're not going to be wading over it anyway.
Yeah, I'm more of a hip pack with a lanyard right now.
Yeah. He's a lanyard guy.
I'm a lanyard guy now.
I like saying that. for
I
some
even
reason.
made one too. You know, I'm all in.
You got beads on it?
Probably like braided up the
I
paracord.
made one that I've got
I
beads
did. I
on.
braided up some paracord.
It's like
Camo.
yeah. It's the hippie
No,
Coyote brown.
carrying system.
I made it really bright so it would spook all the fish.
There you go.
Precision Fly and Tackle is a family-owned business with a passion for the outdoors and a sense of adventure. They are anglers who enjoy every moment spent on the water with family and friends. Precision Fly and Tackle carries the widest selection of Euro rods, reels, lines, leaders, flies, and accessories. From the beginner to the advanced angler, Precision Fly and Tackle can outfit every angler, no matter the budget. Visit them online at precisionflyandtackle.com. Then use code Troutbitten10, that's the number 10, for 10% off your order. Gear up with Precision Fly and Tackle for your next adventure.
Tactical Fly Fisher was started in 2015 by fly fishing team USA angler Devin Olson, with a mission to bring American anglers the techniques and gear that dominate the international competitive fly fishing scene. While you may have no desire to compete, you can still benefit from the same strategies which competitive anglers use to make them more successful on the water. Whether you want to buy a Euro nymphing rod, a stillwater fly line, or just some hooks and beads to fill your fly box, we've got you covered. And our teaching materials will help you learn how to use whatever products fill up your cart. Head on over to thetacticalflyfisher.com and use the code TFF10 to get 10% off flies, fly tying supplies, or terminal tackle.
So with all that fun stuff in your vest, whether it's a junior park ranger vest or a chest pack, to me, one of the more important things from the versatility standpoint is knowing when to change. And I think we get that.
Yes.
If I had to pinpoint one super important thing as an angler, if I was talking to a beginner angler, it's like, look, I see a lot of guys just content. How many times do we see them just throwing the same thing in that same hole, and they attribute the slowness to the weather, or we've talked about that countless times on the podcast this season. But knowing when to change tactics is really important, right? And maybe it's maybe it's swinging that nymph, or putting on that dry fly, or looking at that rise and knowing it's an emerger rise as opposed to a mayfly rise. All that stuff, right, guys? I mean, that's pretty important.
Yeah.
And being a one-trick pony, like, if you can only do one thing, you're doing yourself an incredible disservice out there.
Yeah.
Because you're also limiting yourself to learning even just trout behavior. So, oh no, they're not eating my tight line nymphs. Guess I won't catch fish today.
Yeah.
If you can't put on a streamer, if you can't put on a dry fly, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
There could be fantastic fishing in front of you, and you have no idea.
Yeah.
I think we've all experienced that, where, nymphing's dead. Oh, they're eating a streamer really aggressively. This day all of a sudden turned
Right.
around.
Or tight line nymphing is dead right now, so let's throw it under an Indie.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
For sure.
definitely.
That completely changes the presentation in many ways.
And Dom, elaborate on that, because I feel like I tried explaining that to somebody the other day as far as like tight line tactics. It's a short drift, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just what's your reasoning behind switching to the Indie and having that change? Like what goes through your head?
I'll tell you the two main reasons I'll switch to an Indie. The first one is if I can't wade into great position to track those flies directly to my rod tip in one seam. So let's say if I can't wade over so that I'm only casting over 10 or 12 feet, then I'm going to throw an Indie on so I can get the Indie to lead the flies down one seam instead of my rod tip. That is extremely important to understand. A dead drift is in one seam. If you cross seams, it's no longer a dead drift. We've been through that a lot in so many podcasts, and I've written so many articles on it. It is absolutely the number one thing that I see when I'm guiding. People throw out there 15 or 20 feet across stream, and yes, upstream. But then that fly will land in one seam and track all the way across. By the time they pull it out, it traveled across 5 seams. No nymph does that. No real nymph does that under there. So it's
And
not
they got
dead
like
drift.
3 or 4 feet of actually one seam.
Right. If that,
Yeah.
right?
If
and
that,
so,
right.
if I can't wade into position to get my rod tip where it should be to lead the flies through one seam, I throw an Indie on. If it's windy and I'm getting that leader, that sighter, everything's just a sail and acting like a sail and just getting pushed around, I'll throw an Indie on. Sometimes if I just want to get a drift that looks different because, well, let's put it this way. An indicator can do the job of leading down one seam better than we ever can. I mean, truly tracking through one seam better than any of us ever can. That's my belief, okay? And I'll use that to my advantage. Now, if we take tight line principles over to the indicator, that's a really deadly system. And I know all of us here do that. On a tight line, we throw the Indie. We actually have a full podcast on that in season 1. And taking those tight line principles over to an indicator system allows us to also then vary the speed of that Indie. I don't want to dig too deep into it, but those are a few reasons. And you know that, right? You do the same things, Matt. I'll say one more thing. As that indicator's on the water surface, let's say you got a little bit of a rocky surface. Let's say not real heavy water, but just a little riffle where that Indie goes up a little bit, a couple inches and down, up and down. And if it's tight with the flies underneath, which is what I want, let's say it's tight with the nymph underneath, then it's going up and down, gradually, naturally, and in a way that I've never really, I don't think I very effectively can simulate with my rod tip, no matter how hard I try. It's a very tantalizing look, I think. Those are 3 or 4 reasons why I'll throw the Indy on and why I think it is an absolutely different presentation than what we can do on a tight line.
At surface level, right, there's a downside to that because if you're, let's say you're not using a mono rig and you're using a fly line and you're laying a line on the water, then you can't control the speed of that indicator like you were talking about. And if that's the case, then those flies can't truly slow down to the speed of that bottom column against
unless you're really good at mending.
Right.
If you can keep the tension off the Indy.
Even then, you're going to get some influence because that indicator has a much larger surface area, and it is going to drag the flies in some sort of speed lead manner. Yep. Even if it's not much. But as soon as you switch over to something like a long leader like the mono rig, then you have some control over the actual speed of the indicator, and then you get the benefits without the drawbacks.
Yep. So that's how we can be versatile, just even within nymphing. Is you throw the Indy on, you change everything. Yep. Many different ways to do it.
Yeah. No, I think it's awesome. I took my friend Riley out fishing this past weekend, and it reminded me of the uniqueness of our versatility because he isn't very experienced with a versatile system like this. But we cycled through nymphing tight line to the indicator to tight line nymphing and then streamers all within about 10 minutes and caught fish on each style.
Fantastic.
And he was just sort of floored, just kind of, it was, it didn't hurt that I threw a streamer on in the first cast, a big fish came up and hit it in a very visible way. And so he was like, man, this is cool to see how you can sort of cycle through in a natural way. And we were talking earlier about, switching if they're on this, style versus this style. But honestly, for me, I think there are almost always some fish to be found on each style. And if you can get better and better, Bill has taught me a ton about just like using streamers as part of my natural progression through a river. And that I think has oftentimes brought more trout even into focus that I wouldn't have had an opportunity at before because I'm just more willing to cycle through it more quickly and not see it as like, oh, well, they're not on a tight line approach, so I'm going to switch to the indicator, but kind of like see what's available on each approach and use them all. And in doing so, maybe catch more fish altogether.
I like how you said using the streamer, how'd you say it, Trevor?
Using the streamer, I don't know, as part of kind of my progression through a section of river. Well, it almost is like the type of fish that are going to eat that streamer. I'm thinking about certain types of bank lies or certain types of structure points. And it's almost to avoid those points because of the difficulty of tight line nymphing, those particular holding spots would almost be a shame, and at least now that I'm doing it more often, I think back to how many times I haven't effectively fished sections of river because I've been like, well, where's the good tight lining water, and where can I get my tight line nymphs, the right approach or, but then you add the streamer in, you add even a dry dropper into that, and all of a sudden different things become possible to you.
It's pretty cool.
You're calling these things like a natural progression. And that's beautiful. Yeah. And that goes back to the idea, like I was saying, you just kind of forget about it all and you just start, well, hey, let me do this. Hey, this makes sense. And it's very natural to us. And you have to be willing to change. If you want to be a versatile angler, you have to be willing to make those changes. So boy, we've talked about it. You better be efficient. Okay. You want to tie knots and you want to have stuff laid out in your vest or your pack and you're ready to make those changes. You're not going to waste time. This isn't going to take you long. You have to be willing to change, able to change. And then I say, have a good reason for your next change. Not just like, maybe a dry dropper would work here. No, why would it work here? Right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think that's a good point because I think my biggest thing for changing is often the water type and just how I see the river. And over some years of experience, I'll often be like, okay, well, I think this section is going to be good to tight line. And then this section may be good to indicator fish. And then, okay, well, I know there's a big log jam up here. And I might throw a nymph or two through it a couple times. But I know that if there's a big fish in there, I'm not leaving there until I throw a streamer at it. And to be able to be versatile to do all three of those for those different things, within 20 yards of 30 yards of a river, and not having the ability to do that quickly and to adapt will reduce your wantingness to do it. If
it's not easy, you won't do it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it keeps your head in the game too, right? So, how many times we've been out fishing and the tight lining or whatever we're doing is slow and we get in a rut and, maybe we even zone out and we get sloppy.
Yeah.
The ability to switch back between different tactics and styles of fishing that are both active and maybe, more subtle or any of those things, it really keeps us interested and engaged throughout the day.
Yeah.
And it's more about having fun.
That's a great benefit to being a versatile angler. It keeps your head in the game. Change something. Yeah. I used to change sighter types, just the type of sighter. I used to use a braided sighter and a mono sighter. That's okay. Many different types of sighters I had in my vest, just so I could change it, and not even that they were all that different, but it would refocus me. And what you're saying there, Austin, is you're just using different tactics to refocus you and to have fun.
Yeah. Like a newfound hope in each time, each cycle.
Hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as much as, Dom, you alluded to, at some point in your career, it does become natural. Some of this stuff, like without having to think too hard, we naturally just engage ourselves to change tactics and whatnot. And the cool thing about fly fishing is no matter how long you've been doing it, there's always situations that can dumbfound you. And as versatile as you think you are, the stream throws a curveball at you, right? And I had it happen this past week when we were fishing a tailwater. Yeah. And I think I'm pretty versatile. I've been fly fishing for 29 years, and I got into a situation where I was outmatched by something that we all agree that we don't do too much, but realistic patterns, right? That's one of those versatile things we don't talk about too much. But if
up top,
I was in a situation where they were keying in on an emerging bug and the naturals were out there and I didn't have the right imitation, and they wouldn't take a cat skill. They wouldn't take a parachute. They wanted a clink hammer. And my brother was drilling them, and he's all into that, right? And sometimes I'll joke and say, why are you spending all that time tying all these, and then he just threw it in my face because he was drilling fish, right?
Good for him.
In my state, and he showed me up, and he was fishing a bunny emerger pattern, and a lot of his training grounds are from some central PA limestoners that are really, if you target those rising fish, sometimes they can be challenging, right? And so that versatility comes into some patterns too. Even as much as we say we're generalists, there's always situations where you get stumped.
My latest for kind of solving that surface difficulty, I guess, those picky fish, is the mole fly. Have you guys used that? Mole fly. I learned it from Charlie Craven. I don't know if it's his pattern.
I've heard of it.
Right. It's cool. It's just super simple. It's just another emerger. The only thing that keeps it floating is the CDC. What's underneath is, a dubbed hook, and it's got a little bit of flash mixed into that CDC, just so you can see it. Man, it's pretty cool. It's the latest edition. Yeah.
I feel like if I can't figure out what a fish is eating, I'm going to throw a size 18 compared on at it.
And you'll just keep moving too, Bill. That's what I've always admired about you.
And as long as it's not a big fish.
Well, okay.
I'm going to tip my hat and say, all right, you win today, and I'll go find the dumb brother around the corner.
Honest to God, I was out guiding today, and because of the podcast, guys that I'm guiding will often bring you guys up. And a guy brought up you, Bill, and he said, that guy sounds like covers a lot of water and, just moves on, because he was fishing dries. And I was saying, we're prospecting with these dries. We don't see many risers, and we'd go for 20 minutes and not see any rises. And I said, you're prospecting. You cannot try to force feed them right now. And then he brought you up. He said, I guess that Bill guy, I should fish more like Bill. I'm like, yes. And I said, you can't just take one part of a guy's system and expect to, what makes all of that work for Bill is that he always covers a lot of water. I mean, always. I've never fished with you, Bill, and really been able to keep up with your pace. And I like that. That's cool. That's I think one of your identifying traits, fishing traits. You're covering water, man.
It's personality.
you
the
guys
angler
talked
type.
about, you guys talked, the fast guy. And you guys talked about the night fishing, and you said like 500 yards in a night, and I was like, oh man, that's like 30 minutes. What do you guys doing?
Right. Get moving. Yeah.
That guy, next time you guide him, he's going to be in a different vest because he's going to be like Bill.
Oh yeah.
It's good.
I gotta keep changing.
Well, Bill, to your point, you might do really great at night for that reason, because you'd be more willing to just put it over as many fish as you can find.
Yeah. I fished. I've night fished a couple times, and the times that I've done it, I bet you I've covered a half-mile river in a couple hours.
I will say, when I was really night fishing a lot, I started to do that. I was like, well, I'm going to do it like I would in the daytime and just cover water, more fish. And I started catching fewer. I think there was just something about, well, we talked about it last week. There's a certain style of water that seems to produce, and so much of it doesn't produce. So much of the other stuff doesn't. Yeah. And I found myself walking more than fishing and everything. I don't know, but I would love for you to get into a build, and we would all learn a lot. Same as anybody here. Anybody here, Matt? If you ever want to stop being a
hey now,
I'm looking for those night vision goggles. I need to look for big moose antlers.
Oh man,
and the 45 on your back.
And the 45 on my back. Honestly, I think I'm going to try to do
10 bear bells.
I'm going to try to get Sloop to do it with me when he comes back from Pennsylvania. Yeah, because we can do some stuff within the city limits. That's going to be fine. And
You're not going to get attacked by a grizzly.
I just want to try it 1 or 2 nights, and then we can download. Yeah, we can download from there.
I can't wait for those stories.
Might never look back. Yeah.
As long as you bring Sloop,
I'll never come back on the podcast and I'll be in the paper. All right. I'll say in season 3, episode 14, just that provoked me to lose my life in Montana because I tried to night fish.
You might catch the biggest trout of your life before.
I could though.
That's true. Yeah. I know this isn't about night fishing, but the point that you guys were just making, we kind of proved true the last week. Trevor and I were talking about it, and we're like, we really should just try covering more water because, and we made this claim unknowingly. We were like, because how likely is the fish to take it on like the 8th or 9th drift through the same exact spot? And then that night, because we were talking about that on the way out there, and that night it was like multiple times we had strikes or takes or catches, like on the 10th, 11th, 12th drift to the same spot. Because one of the things you do have to do is, if you're not causing a lot of surface disruption, you have to put it right in front of them sometimes. Yeah. And so there's a downside to covering a lot of water for sure.
I think some fish roam at night too. And so if you're moving and they're moving, you're kind of both operating on different variables. I don't know that our bank fish are moving quite as much, but I think, I read back, like even Bashline spoke about fishing at night. He's so oftentimes standing in one place and cycling through different styles and flies, and then he finds what works, and so I think the more you change sometimes at night, the harder it is to zero in on what's going to work.
We talk about fishing 10 or 15 or 20 drifts almost in the same spot, but we've also acknowledged that we've had fish eat or hit 5, 6, 7 times, and boy, that 8th time, bam, they finally ate it.
Yeah.
So they're
finally get a hold. Yeah.
They're perhaps more forgiving, more interested, they're certainly more willing to be repeated.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because it flies in the face of my typical adage in the day, which is brown trout give you one chance, and once they do, you're done, right?
Right.
So
not
move
true
on.
At night. Yep.
Yeah.
Not true at night.
Even in the daytime, though, there are days where you have to sit there and you have to pound a run, and I feel like it's like an average of 20 casts before you can get that fish to eat, whether he's just, maybe there's a bunch of food. I see it a lot of times with hatches. If there's a bunch of food, the fish is not going to move hardly at all.
Now, Bill, I do think your mindset too, I agree with it on streamers, at least if you still think this way, that the first cast has to be the best.
Matters most, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe on like nymphing or, some variation of that, you can kind of work through it and offer a lot of presentations. I think the opposite is true for streamer fishing during the daytime, at least.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think it can be that way with dry flies too. First cast, matters most.
Right on.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Very true.
And yet, with nymphing, I was saying this to the guy today, I think of it as a top-down approach. I'll work my way down that first
on.
cast, those first 2 casts, whatever. I'm just trying to get a feel for the seam. I really don't even want to touch necessarily that bottom. And then you're working down. You catch plenty of fish on that first drift even. But yeah, I often will work my way into the seam sort of and refine it. And yeah, you can catch a lot of fish on that 8th, 10th drift. Then there's other seams, you walk up to it and you go, this is one where I want to get that perfect drift right away. And especially if you know the water, you put it right in there, bang, right where you want it to be.
I think that's a really good point. And just if you don't know the water, you almost have to work down into it.
There you go.
Because if you're not going to take the time and do that, and you're always going to let it ride deep the first 2 runs through, you're going to snag up a lot, and you're going to have to move to the next run, break it off.
Nice.
Just blowing up fish, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So, hey, anything else, guys, on versatility? What do we miss?
I wanted to bring up weather, and I just urge everyone listening to go out, regardless of conditions, if it's raining, if it's snowing, if it's really cold, if it's windy, to go out and fish anyhow and learn how to fish these different tactics in any condition. Yeah. Because the weather is not something that's constant, and we can't control it. And the days that we get to go fishing, we can't often control either. So we're gonna have to learn how to deal with that. So go out and just get uncomfortable and learn how to fish different styles in different conditions. That's my piece of advice for this.
Good point, Austin. I'll piggyback on that and fish different sections of water. Just don't go to the same place over and over again. Fish a lower reach, an upper reach. Go drive 3 hours one way and stop at the closest trout stream you've never fished and keep it fresh. I know way too many people that do the same thing over and over and over again. And I think that prohibits you from really growing as an angler.
I really liked what you said at the beginning, Matt, which was, the most versatile tool you have is your mind, and the knowledge. And I think a lot of people don't pay attention to their fishing, and if you ask them 3 or 4 fish in, like, well, what water type are the fish in, or you were catching them out of there, they look at you kind of blankly because they haven't been thinking about that, right? And they haven't been thinking about so many of the pieces of data that have been coming their way that they could then use to catch more fish throughout the morning or the day. And so keep your eyes open and pay attention, and train that mind to respond to what the fish are telling you. And that's like the foundation for the versatility then that you will have as an angler.
I like
nice
stuff.
One other thing I'll throw in is don't be afraid to make changes. I feel like if I go 15 minutes and I'm not catching a fish, something like, or at least not like having a fish look at it or eliciting a follow or something.
Some kind of action.
Get in a routine of changing and trying to, if anything it's going to do, it's going to keep you more focused. Like, okay, I've changed this pattern, I've changed this tactic, and now I'm going to fish this good for 15 minutes. And okay, this didn't work. Now let me cycle through it, whether it be just a simple fly change, a weight change, whatever, to kind of keep you in the game.
Yeah, and the longer you fish, the longer you learn to trust yourself, and you say, that's a good drift. I'm doing exactly what I wanted to with this style, with this leader. My objectives are met. I see a dead drift, for example, on my dry fly. Great. Okay. How can I change things,
And sometimes the fish just win.
That's what it comes down to.
There it is.
You got to be versatile. You got to be open-minded and know that happens to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Matt, are you feeling nervous?
About?
The readout.
Oh, no. Why would I feel nervous about that?
Now
he says it's easy.
It's not, yeah.
I mean, I know maybe I'll be nervous with knowing that you're going to critique me pretty heavy, but I'm just going to do my thing and read it. So interrupt me when you need. Aren't we going to, is that it? Are we just going to say,
let me read it out.
It's the last episode. We got to say like, hey man, good luck.
Oh, right.
I'm heading into prime time season out here, guys.
Are you asking all of us to wish you well? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just rubbing it in that I'm it's like April 15th. if I had to compare it to back home, I'm going into April 15th. So the next 8 to 10 weeks are game on out here.
Good luck, sweetheart.
I'll see you in the sweetheart hole.
Matt, you're saying you're entering prime time.
Yes.
Entering prime time out west. There you go.
Prime time. It's
And we're in summertime. We're about
right.
we're kind of getting into that summer rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Which
well,
is
and this
fine
year
we're
from
in the rhythm.
dawn to 11, you know.
Right.
That's right.
This year it's
And night fishing.
with the water the way it's been, it's every hatch is about 2 weeks behind schedule, that's big for a hatch to like the salmon flies to hatch 2 weeks late.
Yeah.
July's going to be really good out here.
Nice. Because you got the water.
We got the water. It's cold. The temperatures, we haven't hit any 90-degree days. It's still in the 40s at night. So it shapes up really well for
40s
for the
at night.
season.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah, it's been cool.
I dream
so
of
yeah,
those right now.
So, hey, guys, seriously, thank you sincerely for being here for all these episodes. And, it was a good season.
no, it was
I like
fun.
We're going to take a few weeks off, and we'll be back and talk more about, what comes up in season 4, season 5. I really, really thank you very much. These are awesome conversations. I learn a lot from every time we talk. It's something I look forward to every Monday night. I love it.
Likewise.
Love it.
right on.
Yeah,
Same here.
That's
Lots of
right.
fun.
It's been
We
good.
have, we have a lot of fishing to do in the next couple weeks, so we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. So hey,
Yes.
what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with a few weeks off? What's your plan? What are your plans for the summer, the early summer coming up? Anything special?
Josh and I are going to keep killing
Two
it at
namers.
night.
Two namers.
That's the
Trevor
plan.
Smith has to catch a neighbor at night.
Two
So-
names.
That's right.
That's
We've got a
the-
film to make
it's-
about it.
This is the summer of my neighbor. It's going to happen.
I'm gonna spend as much time as I can in my new drift boat,
Ooh,
Nice.
That's a sweet looking boat.
throwing foam.
Throwing foam.
Thrash in the water.
Throwing foam and not giving a damn.
No, and I really that takes a little bit, right? You have to be committed to that, because there's a lot of
Yeah,
great
you
wade
do,
fishing that can happen. But I want to be in my sandals around my drift boat, chucking foam against the bank. That's what I'm in the mood for. So the next time we talk, I'll talk about how that went.
Yeah.
Sound like one of those fly fishing ads. You gonna drive your Tacoma there?
I'm gonna drive my Tacoma. I'm gonna get my rods out of my rod rack.
It's Austin's grievance.
I'm gonna avoid the sweetheart hole, and I'm gonna jump in my drift boat.
All right.
Austin's mad.
Make sure to put the rod on your shoulder.
I'll do that.
With every
You could-
picture.
I mean, if you're not in the mood for that, you could. I mean, you're really welcome to bite it.
You could put it in your teeth.
Yeah.
You'd be a cork biter.
That's true.
There you go.
Fiberglass,
Heavy.
cork, it's all the same.
It's been phased out a little bit,
I've not seen
Cork
that in
biting.
a while. Yeah.
right?
Oh, it's still out there.
It's
Still out there.
Are you following the hashtag rod biters?
You get out of here.
Oh, come on now.
My favorite part of that episode where Bill was like, I don't know what you guys are seeing in your feed.
Yeah.
I don't see that. When he's like, guys who fish.
Who said that? Guys, who
Shirtless
fish, yeah.
guys who fish. I don't know what you guys were watching.
I don't know. I see that in my feed.
Not my turn.
All right. Hey, great season. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks very much for great things here with Troutbitten. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, there it is. The versatile angler. It's a description that certainly describes each one of us here. We've all dedicated enough time to different fly rod tactics that we have the skill set to present whatever fly fits the moment, whatever the river dictates. With that kind of versatility, our options are wide open, and we may choose to fish streamers all morning, or maybe it's dry flies all afternoon. But knowing that we have the ability to change and adapt if we want to allows for a different mindset on the river. The experience is more complete because we can do anything at any time given the tools we choose to carry and the system we have for changing efficiently. So, thank you again to everyone out there listening and for supporting this Troutbitten podcast. Season 3 is finished, and Season 4 returns to the Skills Series format, same as Season 2. This time, Austin and I will cover dry dropper styles. It'll be 5 or 6 episodes deep, and we'll cover what I call the 3 styles of dry dropper. These half-hour podcasts support a written series that I've already published to the Troutbitten website, and we're looking forward to adding to that resource. So we're taking a few weeks off here between seasons, but I'm going to keep in touch with a couple mini podcasts. I have a few ideas. There will also be a feed drop featuring a podcast where I was recently a guest with Jason from the Wade Out There podcast. It's a good conversation. So look for all of that in your Troutbitten podcast feed. All right, Matt, will you read us out?
Oh yeah. Remember, the Troutbitten Project is a free resource for all anglers. The Troutbitten website hosts over 800 articles with endless stories, commentaries, tactics, tips, and more. Find what you like through the top menu and through the search page. Navigate by way of the categories and tags too. Be sure to find the Troutbitten YouTube channel, currently featuring the Troutbitten Tip Series in collaboration with Wilds Media. There are short, useful, and unique tips for your fly fishing life. Thank you for listening to the Troutbitten Podcast. Please give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and leave a comment, because that really helps. Until next time, friends, fish hard, enjoy the day, and find your life on the water. Do you like it?
A flawless performance.
Let's go, season 4.
That was seriously good. Somewhere in that 18 to 22 range. Didn't measure them, but most of them were whiskeys.
That was some fast math, man.
Sugar will put you right to sleep.
What the hell?
Did your hard work pay off? Was it worth it?
Big payoff.
There you go.
Oh my gosh, was I grinding it.
Look at this one. Look at this one.
Championship hold.
I hate to say it, but the hold matters, yeah.
Like, did you take turns groping it out?
All right.
If you were a good fisherman, I think you could still catch.
I could have like a junior park ranger vest.
Walmart.
Hey, he's picking on you.
I like to catch fish.
Yes.
Good luck, sweetheart.